It's World War II, and while the world is rattling with weapons and war, Hitler hatches a bizarre plan. He starts rounding up people with special abilities and running strange experiments on them, aiming to turn them into superhumans. Even though his missions keep failing and the war eventually ends, the process doesn't stop. Because of these secret experiments, some supernaturally powered individuals survive into the present, with abilities that seem almost unbelievable. But why are these superhumans now in danger? That's the mystery we're here to unravel as we dive into an explanation of the movie Push. Right from the start, we meet a boy named Nick. One day, his father, sensing imminent danger, takes him to a room and urgently says, "Nick, I need your help. Listen carefully. One day a girl will come to you and give you a flower. In return, you must help her." Without hesitation, Nick replies, "Yes, I will." His father embraces him one last time, but at that moment, intruders break into their home. Using his powers, Nick's father sends him to another room, while his aides try to fend off the attackers. Despite their efforts, everyone, including Nick's father, is brutally killed right before Nick's eyes. But at that moment, Nick had neither the power nor the knowledge to do anything, and the story behind that unfolds in a flashback. After World War II, it was discovered that there were numerous people with supernatural abilities whose powers could accomplish incredible feats. To harness these abilities, influential figures from several countries formed a secret agency called the Division. Their mission was to experiment on people with supernatural powers and make them even stronger, developing a powerful injection as a key tool. However, every person who had received this injection so far had died. The Division is led by Henry, who oversees all experiments and coordinates the search for 9 specific types of superpowered individuals. First are the Watchers, who can see the future and even manipulate it. Next are the Movers, capable of moving objects without touching them. Then come the Sniffers, who can extract every detail about someone or something just by scent. Who was there, what they did, and why. Fourth are the Bleeders, whose screams can destroy the blood of all living beings nearby by vibrating at a lethal frequency. Fifth are the Fifers, who can erase memories from anyone's mind. Sixth are the Shifters, able to use light to print anything onto any surface instantly. But the prints made by the Shifters don't last long. They can instantly turn a blank sheet of paper into a dollar bill, for example, but it's temporary. Seventh are the Shadows, who can hide their own or others' futures from Watchers. Eighth are the Healers, who can mend any injury in an instant. Finally, the most dangerous are the Pushers, who can hypnotize anyone and make them do literally anything. The story then jumps 10 years forward. The Division is still experimenting on superpowered individuals, and we see a woman captured for one such experiment. On her way, she drops a small crystal that will later prove crucial. At the same time, Division doctors administer the fatal injection to a girl named Kira, an injection no one has ever survived. The moment it's applied, Kira's heartbeat stops, and the doctors assume she's dead. But then she opens her eyes, kills the doctors, grabs the injection, and begins her escape. For the first time, someone has survived the Division's experiment. Agents immediately pursue Kira, locking down the facility's doors, but the crystal the woman dropped prevents a complete lockdown, allowing Kira to slip away. Furious, Division head Henry orders his agents to find her at all costs. Meanwhile, we see the young Nick, now grown into a young man, living in a rundown apartment that makes it clear he's struggling financially. Nick doesn't really have a steady income, and on top of that, he's deep in debt. He even wakes up some mornings just to gamble and lose more money. One day, after losing a bet, the guy he owes gets furious and starts beating him, forcing Nick to flee back to his apartment. It's here that we learn Nick is actually a mover, though he has little control over his own powers. Just as he arrives home bruised, 2 Division agents come looking for Kira. They're Sniffers, capable of uncovering every detail about anything just by scent. They ransack Nick's apartment, searching every object, but fail to detect Kira, so they warn Nick not to leave the city and leave. Nick has been hiding from the Division for a long time, but now that they've found his address, he starts preparing to escape. At that moment, he gets a call telling him to open his door. Armed, he does, and finds a little girl standing there silently, helping herself to food from his fridge. When Nick asks who she is, she introduces herself as Cassie, saying she needs his help. Nick asks why he should help her, and she explains she's a Watcher who can find a box containing $6 million with his assistance. If they work together, they might be able to get it. With barely any food at home, Nick reluctantly takes Cassie out to eat, but he warns her he doesn't trust a kid like her and isn't sure he can help. Cassie tries to convince Nick, but suddenly she has a vision and warns him, "We need to get out of here now, someone's coming to attack us." They sprint out of the market, only to be ambushed by a superpowered family. In this family, there's a girl who, like Cassie, is a Watcher, while the rest are Bleeders. They demand to know Kira's whereabouts, but Nick insists he doesn't know. Enraged, the bleeders start screaming, and the intense frequencies begin to kill all living creatures around them. Nick manages to use his power to push Cassie out of harm's way, but he's badly injured in the process. Just as the bleeders are about to finish him off, the Watcher girl steps in and declares that only Nick can help deliver Kira's child, so he must not be killed, or they'll never find Kira. The family leaves him unconscious, and we cut back to Kira, who awakens inside a boat in the middle of a river. Confused and unable to remember much of her past, she sees a strange man sitting in front of her. Seeking clarity, she heads to the restroom, where she notices Nick's address and number written on the mirror in lipstick. Surprised but determined, Kira sets off toward that address. Meanwhile, Cassie rescues the injured Nick and takes him to a safe place, clearly tense and worried as she tends to him. At that moment, a woman appears, and Cassie assumes she might be from the division, so she gets ready to strike. But the woman calms her, explaining that Cassie's mother had once done her a huge favor and had even warned her about today's events, so she's here to help. It turns out Cassie's mother was a powerful Watcher who had been captured by the division for experiments. Now, as a healer, the woman quickly restores Nick to full strength. Once he regains consciousness, Cassie approaches and gives him a flower, triggering Nick's memory of his father's words, that when a girl gave him a flower, he must help her. And he realizes Cassie is that girl. Cassie then tells Nick that the suitcase she mentioned doesn't contain money, but something far more valuable that could help them all gain freedom. She also reveals that her mother is a Watcher whose powers terrified the division, which is why she was imprisoned. Nick connects the dots, realizing that the division killed his father for the same reason. Cassie then shows him a vision of Kira being captured by two men, and although Nick wants to rush to save her, Cassie warns that doing so could cost both their lives. Her mother, however, insists they must help Kira. Meanwhile, the division agents who had been searching for Kira at Nick's apartment finally locate her for real, setting the stage for the next confrontation. As they carry Kira into a car from the middle of the street, she tries to hypnotize one of her captors, using her pusher abilities, but she's too weak and fails. Later, when Kira asks to use the restroom, the men pull over and take her inside. Sitting there, she tries again, and this time succeeds. She implants a thought in one man's mind that blames his partner for his brother's death. Enraged, he kills his partner before realizing, once the hypnosis fades, the terrible mistake he's made. In a furious attempt to attack Kira, a fight breaks out, during which her bracelet falls to the floor. Kira manages to knock the man out, get him into a car, and escape. Meanwhile, Nick and Cassie set off in a taxi to find her. Nick uses his powers to flip through pages in Cassie's sketchbook and suddenly sees a drawing of a juice glass with a small crystal beside it, the last thing Cassie had drawn. Nick realizes the drawing points to a bar he knows, and they decide this might be where they can find the crystal. Back with Kira, the man who killed his partner reports everything to Division Head Henry, handing over the crystals from Kira's bracelet and revealing the full story of her escape. Henry, furious at the man's incompetence, hypnotizes him and kills him on the spot. Henry himself is a powerful pusher, which explains why he's obsessively hunting Kira. He orders his colleague Victor to send the crystals from Kira's bracelet to the city's best watchers and sniffers so they can track her. Meanwhile, Nick and Cassie drive to a bar where they meet Hook, a shifter who's an old acquaintance of Nick's. Nick asks if Hook has seen a crystal matching the one in Cassie's drawing. Hook doesn't have that exact crystal, but he transforms an earring into an identical crystal and gives it to them, explaining that if they take it to Emily, a sniffer, all their problems will be solved. Nick and Cassie deliver the crystal to Emily and learn that the crystal from the girl's bracelet can now be found at Hong Kong Station. Wasting no time, Nick heads there. At the station, Kira is seen hypnotizing a foreign couple to pose as her friends. But just as she's about to leave with them, Nick and Cassie arrive. Kira immediately opens fire on Nick, though he somehow manages to calm her. It's revealed that Nick and Kira didn't know each other before, but they did have a relationship. Kira scolds Nick, asking why he didn't come looking for her after the division captured her. Nick explains that he tried calling Kira many times, but since she never answered, he assumed she didn't want to be contacted. Cassie interrupts, saying it's time to focus on what really matters: the connection between Kira and the suitcase. Kira admits she doesn't know why everyone is after it. Having lost some memories, she can't remember what's inside or where she hid the key. Nick realizes she likely erased those memories herself to prevent any watchers from reading her mind about the suitcase. Later, while out buying food, Cassie warns Nick they need to keep Kira away from themselves, or the division agents will come for her and kill them all in the process. Nick comes up with a plan to take Kira to a shadow, someone who can temporarily hide her from all watchers. They bring her to their shadow friend, who explains that as long as Kira stays within 20 feet, no watcher can detect her. They all decide to stay together in a hotel for safety. At the hotel, Cassie goes out to get food and the shadow senses that Nick and Kira need some private time, so he leaves as well. Kira then hypnotizes Nick and takes him to the restroom, where they share an intimate moment. Meanwhile, as Cassie returns with the food, the powerful girl from the family shows up to meet her. The girl warns Cassie, "If you don't leave Nick's side, you'll die too. We'll find Kira soon, and then there'll be no escape for you. I even know how it will happen," showing her a sketch of a tiger before leaving. Once gone, Cassie returns to the hotel after grabbing drinks, where she yells at Nick, frustrated that Kira herself doesn't know the suitcase's location. She says they're all risking their lives for her and points out that the Watchers, who were supposed to be unable to detect them here, have already arrived. Even the shadow accompanying them is surprised, realizing the Watchers aren't tracking Kira, but are instead following Nick's brain signal. Nick decides it's time to split up, sending Kira with the shadow while he takes Cassie and moves out. Suddenly, Cassie has a terrifying vision, prompting them to leave immediately. Shortly after, the powerful family arrives at the hotel, but they're too late to find anything. Nick realizes they can't keep running forever, and that if they don't rescue Cassie's mother soon, Henry's agents will kill Kira. He decides they must confront Henry directly. Using Emily, Nick locates Henry's position and heads there, unleashing his powers to aim guns at Henry and his assistant Victor, threatening them to stop their actions immediately or face deadly consequences. Henry tells Nick that he's going to die anyway, but if Henry himself dies, many others, including Kira, won't survive. Because the steroids from the pusher injection in Kira's body need to be administered quickly, and only Henry has them. During this exchange, Victor seizes control of Nick's powers, knowing exactly how to manipulate them since he was once a mover himself. As Victor prepares to shoot Nick, Nick hurls a table at him and grabs a gun, but Victor floats it out of his hands and fires from a distance. The fight drags on, leaving Nick weakened. Victor then levitates the gun right next to Nick's head and pulls the trigger, but luckily the bullets run out, sparing Nick for the moment. Victor continues attacking Nick using various objects, and for the first time in the movie, the hero takes heavy damage everywhere. Henry then drags Nick outside the restaurant, where he encounters Cassie, who is quietly sketching her visions. Tearfully, Cassie pleads, "Please don't kill me." Henry reassures her that he won't hurt a child, but Cassie warns that killing Nick would alter the future. Hearing this, Henry rushes back inside to stop Victor and this time leaves Nick and Cassie unharmed. Nick and Cassie immediately head to Kira, only to find her condition rapidly deteriorating. Cassie holds Kira tightly, clearly showing how much she cares for her. Nick asks Kira if she remembers anything about the suitcase or knows what's inside. Kira reveals that the suitcase contains a steroid which, if administered, would make her the most powerful pusher ever, because so far, the injection has never had a positive effect on anyone else. That's why Henry's agents are desperately hunting her. Once they get the suitcase, Kira will have no choice but to face them. At that moment, Cassie has a vision of a shoe, and after sketching it, she finds a key hidden in Kira's shoe. Nick realizes this is the key to the suitcase, and retrieving it could save Cassie. They go to Emily asking her to use her sniffing ability to locate the suitcase, but she fails. Using her visions, Cassie identifies a building where the suitcase is hidden, shielded from all Watchers. However, she remembers that even if the building is hidden, Watchers can still read minds and discover the suitcase's location. Nick explains that Watchers will only see what they're thinking about it. If they don't think about it, the Watchers can't detect it. He quietly devises a plan in his mind, keeping it secret so no one else can think about it either, and writes down instructions for when and who should act, sealing them in an envelope to be used at the right moment. Nick calls in his friend Hook, and together with Cassie, Kira, Emily, and the Shadow, he has each of them write a letter outlining their next steps, sealing them in envelopes for each person. Then he uses the Shadow to locate the person whose memory Kira had erased. Nick plans to erase his own last 2 hours of memory so that Watchers can't read his mind and uncover their plan. Everyone will follow the instructions in the envelopes, ensuring that no one, including themselves, knows the next moves. Meanwhile, the powerful girl from the family realizes that the division is searching not only for Cassie but also for the injection, and tells her family that if they find it first, they could become even stronger than the division. Kira's condition worsens, so before retrieving the suitcase, they decide to take her to Henry, the only person who can temporarily stabilize her. Nick gives Kira her envelope, telling her to open it if she ever feels herself forgetting, and sends her to Henry with the Shadow. The others also follow their envelope instructions, waiting for Nick's Shadow to complete its task. The Shadow delivers Kira to Henry, opens its own envelope, and is instructed to take Nick to the Pfeiffer, the one who erased Kira's memory. When the shadow brings Nick to the Pfeiffer, he asks why she wiped Kira's memories. Nick asks the Pfeiffer if Kira had instructed her to erase her memories, and the Pfeiffer explains that years ago, a woman had come to her, saying that one day a traumatized young woman would arrive and that she should wipe a few days of her memory, so that's exactly what she did. Nick then asks the Pfeiffer to erase some of his own recent memories, and as she begins, the powerful girl from the family loses access to Nick's mind. At precisely 7:35, everyone opens their envelopes and learns their assigned tasks. Hook, following his instructions, heads to the building hidden from the Watchers, posing as a safety inspector to enter the locker room. He retrieves the key for Kira from the envelope, sees 4100 written on it, and realizes he must unlock locker number 4100 to get the suitcase. At that moment, an elderly woman, also a shadow, appears and confirms she had hidden the building from the Watchers on Kira's instructions. Hook explains that Kira sent him, and after seeing the key, the woman allows him to take the suitcase. Hook delivers it directly to the hotel, swapping it with an identical decoy while leaving the fake suitcase at Nick and Cassie's apartment. He then grabs a gun and heads out to complete the next task. Meanwhile, Nick, regaining consciousness, finds his envelope, opens it, and learns his assignment: return home. As he heads there, the healer woman attacks him, taking the real suitcase and delivering it into the hands of the powerful family. Here, we learn that the healer had initially saved Nick so she could gradually subdue him and gain control over his powers. But Nick turns the tables, using his abilities to force a gun to her head and command her to heal him, leaving her no choice but to do so. Meanwhile, the head of the powerful family becomes ecstatic over the suitcase, only for his joy to be short-lived when he opens it and finds the injection transformed into a bottle of soy sauce. Hook had cleverly filled the decoy suitcase with the soy sauce shaped like the injection. The Watcher girl realizes the real suitcase is still in the building and sends the family there. Meanwhile, Nick and Cassie restrain the healer and head out to their next task. Kira, for her part, had been temporarily stabilized by Henry with a small steroid, but she now urgently needs the real injection to survive. Henry hypnotizes her, implanting the belief that she is his agent and has always been working for him, making her act affectionately toward Nick as part of the ruse. Later, Nick and Cassie are seen again, with Cassie sketching numerous tigers in her book because her vision shows that her death will come at the hands of a tiger. Nick tells her not to be afraid and to face her fate boldly. Following her vision, Cassie arrives at a restaurant-like location where several boxes display more tiger sketches, and the powerful girl confronts her with a gun, declaring that she knows Cassie had the real steroid. "You've made a huge mistake fooling me. I'm going to kill you right now," the girl shouts, but the Pfeiffer suddenly strikes her on the head, saving Cassie just as her mother had predicted and warned her about. Freed, Cassie escapes. Meanwhile, Nick goes to Henry's house to retrieve Kira, only for Kira to coldly tell him, "I never loved you. Everything you felt was implanted in your mind through hypnosis. We never shared any real moments. I've been working for Henry all along. I don't even remember why I pretended to forget the suitcase, so I played along with you." Nick is heartbroken, knowing deep down that Kira truly loved him. At that moment, Hook calls Henry, giving him the location of both the suitcase and the building. Henry immediately heads there with Victor, Kira, and Nick. When Nick reveals the suitcase's location, Victor attacks him, trapping him in a car's legroom. Inside the building, Henry and his team find the powerful family's blinders armed and waiting, sparking a massive fight. Nick fights fiercely, overcoming everyone, and after an intense battle, only Nick, Kira, and Henry survive. As Henry secures the suitcase and heads upstairs, Nick moves to grab it, but Henry strikes him, hypnotizing him to jump to his death. Playing along without being hypnotized, Nick deceives Henry and snatches the injection from him. Henry tries to convince Nick that the injection is Kira's only hope, warning that if Nick injects himself, both of them will die. Nick stares into Kira's eyes, asking if she remembers anything, but when she stays silent, he injects himself and dies on the spot. Henry then takes Kira back to the division to experiment on her and replicate the powerful injection. Meanwhile, Cassie reaches Nick just as he regains consciousness, handing him the real injection, revealing the truth. The one Nick had was a fake. Hook had already secured the real injection from the building, misdirecting the blinders and Henry's team to believe it was still there. This was all part of Nick's plan, creating chaos to destroy his enemies and free all superpowered individuals. With Henry the only remaining threat, Kira, realizing she truly loves Nick, hypnotizes him and uses his own powers to eliminate Henry. Finally, all the superpowered people are free, and the future envisioned by Nick's father and Cassie's mother is realized, bringing the thrilling supernatural sci-fi story to a climactic close.